The night was quieter than usual, that kind of silence that presses against your chest, making you feel like you're the only soul awake in the entire world. The ceiling fan hummed softly above me, and beside me, Silas slept soundly, his breathing steady and calm. Our bedroom window was slightly ajar, letting in a cool breeze that whispered through the curtains like a secret trying to escape. But sleep wouldn't come to me. Not after what had happened earlier. It weighed on me like a stone, heavy and impossible to ignore. My name is Alara, and tonight something shifted, something I can't explain, something that feels like a betrayal of the most intimate kind. I turned my head to look at Silas. His face was peaceful, untouched by the storm unraveling inside me. My heart ached with the secret I was holding, a secret I couldn't share, not with him, not with anyone. Earlier that evening, as I was getting ready for bed, our dog Lior did something that shattered the fragile calm of our home. Something unexpected, something I still couldn't fully understand. Lior, who had always been a gentle presence, loyal, patient, full of quiet affection, had crossed a line I didn't know existed. For a moment, I had frozen, unsure if what I saw was real or my mind playing tricks on me. The shock came first, then confusion, and then a flood of emotions that made my skin crawl and my heart ache all at once. Now, lying here in the darkness, I replayed it again and again, how something so ordinary could suddenly feel so wrong. How could love, loyalty, and safety twist into something unrecognizable in an instant? I closed my eyes and turned away from Silas, trying to bury my face in the pillow. But the darkness offered no escape. Should I tell him? Could I even put it into words? The thought of his reaction, disbelief, disgust, or worse, blame, made my stomach twist. Downstairs, I heard Lior moving. His claws clicked lightly against the wooden floor, each sound echoing in my mind like a quiet accusation. My chest tightened. That sound, once so comforting, now carried weight, like a reminder of something I didn't want to face. Was it my fault? Was it his? Or was it something beyond either of us? Something in the air tonight, in the stillness of this house that suddenly felt too small to hold my thoughts. The questions circled endlessly, each one sharper than the last. The silence mocked me, as if it already knew all my fears. The night stretched on, cold and endless. I tried to steady my breathing, but the more I tried to quiet my thoughts, the louder they grew. How could I ever go back to normal after tonight? The first light of morning came too soon. It spilled through the curtains, bold and intrusive, as if it had no right to brighten what had turned dark inside me. I slipped out of bed quietly, not wanting to wake Silas. His face still looked so calm, so far from the turmoil that consumed me. The house was still, unnervingly still. I went through the motions of my morning routine, each action heavy and slow. When I poured coffee into my mug, my hand trembled, spilling a few drops that I wiped away automatically. My body was here, but my mind was stuck in that moment from the night before, looping endlessly. Then Lior walked into the kitchen, tail wagging like nothing had happened. His eyes, wide and innocent, met mine, and for a heartbeat, I didn't see betrayal. Just the same creature that had slept by my side for years, protecting me through every storm. "Hey, boy," I murmured, my voice faint, hollow. He wagged harder, brushing against my leg, seeking the warmth I couldn't give. I wanted to be angry, but instead, all I felt was confusion. A strange, aching tenderness tangled with guilt. The smell of toast from a neighbor's window drifted in through the open door. The world outside was alive, ordinary, untouched, but inside, everything had changed. I stared at Lior, his brown eyes full of trust, and whispered so softly I wasn't sure if he could hear me. "What do I do with you now?" The question hung in the air unanswered, like the weight of something sacred that had been quietly broken. The morning unfolded slowly, like a film reel moving at half speed. The house felt heavier than usual, filled with invisible weight. I moved from one room to another, trying to lose myself in small routines, folding the blanket, washing the dishes, pretending everything was fine. But every sound seemed amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even Leor's gentle breathing as he lay near the door. Silas was still asleep upstairs. For a moment, I watched the sunlight slip across the tiles and thought about how easily the world carries on after our private disasters. Maybe that's the hardest part. How normal everything looks when you're quietly falling apart inside. Leor followed me into the kitchen, his tail sweeping the floor like a silent apology. When I bent to refill his bowl, he pressed his head against my arm. The gesture was tender, almost human. My throat tightened. I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't. Love doesn't vanish in a night. It lingers, wounded and unsure of where to go. I made myself a cup of coffee and stared out the window. Mrs. Alden, my elderly neighbor, was outside tending to her plants. She always wore a faded sun hat and moved with careful patience. Seeing her there, so ordinary and stable, made me ache for a version of myself that didn't exist anymore. The Alara who trusted simple things. When I stepped out to greet her, it was mostly to escape my own thoughts. "Good morning, dear," she said warmly, her hands wrapped around a small watering can. "You look tired. Rough night?" I forced a faint smile. "Something like that." "Well," she chuckled, "coffee helps most things." Her voice was comforting in a way I hadn't realized I needed. We talked briefly about her roses, about the weather, about nothing that mattered, but somehow it steadied me. For a few minutes, I could pretend the world was normal. When I went back inside, the silence returned like an echo. I picked up my phone and stared at Mira's name in my contact list. My sister had always been the practical one, sharp-minded, unflinching. But how could I explain this to her? How could I say the words out loud without sounding unhinged? Still, the need to tell someone gnawed at me. My fingers hovered, then finally pressed call. She answered on the second ring. "Alara, you sound off. What's wrong?" I hesitated. Something happened last night with Leor. It's strange. I don't even know how to talk about it. Her tone softened immediately. "Strange how?" I took a deep breath and told her. Not every detail, but enough for her to understand my confusion. The line went silent for a moment. "That's a lot," she said finally, her voice steady but gentle. "Maybe talk to Dr. Rowan. Dogs sometimes act out from stress or confusion. It doesn't always mean what it feels like." Her words sank in slowly. I hadn't thought of it that way. That there might be a reason beyond my understanding. Something less personal, less haunting. "Yeah," I murmured, staring at Leor, who was now sitting quietly by the door. "Maybe you're right." "Promise me you'll call the vet," Mira urged. "Don't let your imagination torture you, okay?" I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "I'll call." When we hung up, a small measure of relief settled over me. It wasn't much, but it was something. That afternoon, I found myself cleaning every corner of the house, as if order could cleanse the chaos in my head. Leor followed my movements silently, watching me with those same trusting eyes. I couldn't tell if he sensed my unease or if he was just confused by it. By evening, the walls felt tighter again. Silas had left for work, his goodbye kiss light and distracted. He didn't notice how stiff I was, how my smile didn't reach my eyes. Maybe that was a mercy. The clock ticked past 7 when I finally dialed Dr. Rowan's office. Her assistant booked me an appointment for the following morning. "Bring him in first thing," she said kindly. "We'll take a look." When I hung up, I felt something shift inside me, the faintest glimmer of hope that maybe this was fixable. Maybe it wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was misunderstanding. That night, though, hope was hard to hold. The house seemed too quiet again, every shadow stretching long and uneasy. Silas sat beside me on the couch, absorbed in his laptop, unaware of the storm still swirling just beneath my calm exterior. Leor lay by the fireplace, head resting on his paws. His eyes followed my every movement, calm, patient, unreadable. For the first time, I wondered if he understood more than I gave him credit for. I reached down and touched his head gently. His fur was warm beneath my fingers, soft and familiar. "We'll figure this out," I whispered. "I promise." He lifted his gaze to mine, and for a brief, strange second, it felt like he believed me. Like he was waiting for me to forgive him for something neither of us could name. The clock struck 10. Silas yawned and stood. "I'm heading to bed," he said, kissing the top of my head. "Don't stay up too late," I nodded. "I won't." When he disappeared up the stairs, the house seemed to exhale, leaving me alone with the sound of Lior's slow breathing and the tick of the clock. Tomorrow, I'd take him to Dr. Rowan. Maybe she would have answers. Maybe everything would make sense again. But as I turned off the lights and glanced at Lior one last time, his eyes caught the faint glow from the fireplace, and for an instant, it almost looked like something human flickered there. My heart skipped a beat. The morning light was pale, hesitant, as if the world itself wasn't ready to face what waited ahead. I drove in silence, one hand resting on the steering wheel, the other occasionally brushing Lior's head in the passenger seat. He looked out the window, calm as ever, unaware that I was carrying the weight of a storm neither of us understood. The drive to Dr. Rowan's clinic took 20 minutes, but it felt longer. Each red light gave my mind room to wander. What if I was overreacting? What if something was actually wrong with him? Or worse, what if nothing was wrong, and it was me who needed fixing? When I arrived, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. Dr. Rowan's clinic was small but spotless, the kind of place that radiated calm. She greeted me at the door with a gentle smile. "Ilara, good to see you again. And Lior, always handsome, aren't you?" Her voice was steady, reassuring. I nodded, managing a nervous smile. "He's been different. Something happened and I can't quite explain it." She motioned toward the examination room. "Let's sit down, take a breath, and start from the beginning." As Lior wandered around, sniffing the corners of the room, I told her everything, not in one rush, but in fragments. The words felt heavy, fragile, like glass that might shatter if I spoke too loud. I expected her to react. Confusion, surprise, maybe disbelief. But she just listened. Arms folded gently, eyes soft with understanding. When I finished, there was silence. Only the faint sound of Lior's nails clicking against the tile floor. Dr. Rowan finally spoke. "Ilara, I know this is upsetting, but you're not the first person to come in with something like this. Dogs can exhibit behaviors that seem confusing, even human at times. It's rarely malicious. Usually it's instinct, stress, hormones, confusion." Her tone was professional but kind, the way someone speaks when they know words alone won't fix what's broken. I swallowed hard. "So you're saying it's not intentional?" She shook her head. "No, not at all. But I'd like to run a few quick tests, just to be sure he's healthy." I nodded, relief and dread colliding in my chest. While she checked his heartbeat, eyes, and reflexes, I sat quietly, staring at the wall behind her. A photo of a golden retriever with a child, both smiling in a field of sunflowers. It should have been heartwarming. Instead, it made me ache. 15 minutes passed. Lior was calm through it all, tail wagging lightly when Dr. Rowan praised him. "He's a wonderful dog," she said warmly. "Whatever happened, Ilara, I promise it doesn't define your bond." When she returned with the results, her face was thoughtful, but reassuring. "Physically, he's fine. Perfectly healthy. What I suspect is behavioral, a mix of confusion and hormonal imbalance." "Has he been neutered?" I shook my head. "Not yet. We were planning to, but—" "Then I'd recommend it," she said gently. "It often helps reduce those impulses and stabilizes their emotions. You might also consider some behavioral sessions. Dogs are sensitive to household energy, tension, stress, even silence. They mirror us more than we realize." Her words sank deep, stirring something raw inside me. I thought about the quiet dinners, the unspoken wait between Silas and me, the nights I lay awake staring into the dark. Maybe Lior wasn't the only one mirroring something broken. "I understand," I whispered. As I signed the papers for Lior's upcoming procedure, Dr. Rowan gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "Don't let guilt consume you, Ilara. Sometimes these moments are less about fault and more about understanding what needs healing in both of you. The drive back home was wrapped in silence. Lior rested his head on my lap, his breath slow and steady. The hum of the road beneath us felt almost hypnotic. For the first time in days, I didn't feel anger, just an exhausted kind of sadness, like a tide that had finally stopped fighting the shore. When we reached home, I sat in the car long after turning off the engine. The house stood still against the soft gray sky, ordinary and unchanged. But I wasn't the same. Something inside me had shifted. I looked at Lior, who gazed back with those deep, unreadable eyes. "Maybe we both need fixing," I murmured. He wagged his tail once, slow and patient, as if agreeing. That night, Silas noticed my quietness at dinner but didn't ask. I didn't volunteer. It wasn't secrecy, it was exhaustion. I just didn't have the words left. Later, as I lay in bed, staring at the faint glow from the street lamp filtering through the curtains, I felt Lior's absence downstairs like an ache. For the first time, I wondered if Dr. Rowan was right, if Lior had only mirrored what I refused to admit. Something was off, not just with him, but with me, and the more I tried to ignore it, the louder that truth became in my chest. Weeks passed, and the air in our home began to change. It wasn't silence anymore, it was softness. A fragile truce between the ghosts of what happened and the life we were trying to rebuild. Lior had been neutered, and under Dr. Rowan's guidance, his behavior started to calm. Yet the invisible line between us, the one that incident had carved, still lingered. We both felt it, even in the quiet moments, especially in them. One evening, as the last light faded through the living room windows, Silas broke the silence. "Alara, I've been thinking about us. About Lior." I turned toward him, bracing myself. "What about him?" He hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "I talked to Lucan, remember him? My brother's friend. The one with the farm outside the city. He said he could take Lior in. There's open land, other dogs. It might be better for him." The words hit harder than I expected. I'd known this conversation was coming, but hearing it aloud felt like a quiet earthquake beneath my ribs. "Better for him," I repeated, barely above a whisper. "Or better for us." Silas sighed, his gaze dropping to the floor. "Maybe both." I looked toward Lior, curled up near the fireplace, peaceful and unaware of the decision being made about his future. My throat tightened. "He's family, Silas. How do you just let go of that?" He moved closer, his voice softer now. Maybe letting go is the only way to heal. For him. For us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the faint crackle from the fireplace. Then slowly I nodded. "If we do this, we do it together. No secrets. No blame. Together," he promised. The next morning, we packed Lior's things, his favorite toy, his blanket, a small bag of treats. The drive to Lucan's farm was quiet, the road winding through fields painted gold by the afternoon sun. When we arrived, Lucan greeted us with a wide, kind smile. "You must be Alara. I've heard all about Lior." He crouched to pet him, and Lior, as if sensing the peace of the place, wagged his tail immediately. The farm stretched endlessly. Green fields, a gentle stream, and dogs running freely under the open sky. It felt like freedom itself had built a home there. Watching Lior run, tail high, chasing the wind, something inside me began to loosen. The grief, the guilt, all of it. Silas slipped his hand into mine. "Look at him," he murmured. "He belongs here," I nodded, tears gathering in my eyes. "Yeah, he does." We stayed a while, talking with Lucan, watching Lior play. When the sun dipped behind the hills, casting everything in soft gold, we knew it was time to leave. Saying goodbye was harder than I imagined. Lior ran back to me one last time, pressed his head against my knee, the same way he used to every morning. I bent down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Be happy, okay? You deserve it." He barked once, almost like an answer, then turned and sprinted back toward the fields. The drive home was silent, but not heavy. It was a different kind of silence, the kind that follows release, not loss. Weeks turned into months. The house was quieter without Lior's footsteps, but there was also peace, a gentle rhythm returning to our lives. Silas and I began to talk more, laugh again, fill the empty spaces with something new. One afternoon, while sitting by the window, I looked at a picture of Lior on my phone. Him running through the fields, sunlight in his fur. I smiled softly. He looked free. Silas came up behind me, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "At first I did," I admitted. "But now, seeing him like that, no, we did what was right." He nodded. "It feels like we gave him a second chance. And somehow, it gave us one too." I turned to face him, and for the first time in months, our eyes met without the shadow of that night between us. "Maybe this was what healing looks like," I said quietly. "Not forgetting, just learning to live again." He smiled, that rare, soft kind of smile I'd missed so much. "Then let's keep living." Outside, the world moved on, slow, patient, full of light. Some nights I still dream of Lior running across endless fields. When I wake, the ache in my chest isn't pain anymore. It's gratitude. Because love, I've learned, doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes it means knowing when to let go. If this story touched your heart, don't leave quietly. Tell me, have you ever had to let go of something you loved just to help it heal? Your comment might be the reminder someone else needs tonight.